Hello guys, welcome to Sheps Chat. This is on Chapter 7, Interest Groups. So your chapter for this week starts off with a what if question, and it's what if the government started regulating interest groups? So in some ways the government does regulate interest groups. You already know by now that you have to register to lobby if you have read the chapter, but they can't do much more than that. And why can't they do much more than that? Because of the First Amendment. The First Amendment allows them the freedom of speech, and it also allows them the freedom to assemble. So these interest groups are covered by the rights of the First Amendment. All right, so what exactly is an interest group? All right, an interest group, the definition, is an organized group of individuals who share common objectives and try to influence policymakers. Many people are interest groups, are like involved in interest groups, or members of interest groups without even realizing it. So I put down 2 interest groups that I know for a fact that I'm involved in, the teachers union, so the NEA, and then my church, the ELCA, is also an interest group, but it's not counted the same because it's a religious organization that's a 501c, so it doesn't have to pay any taxes. So stop right here and think, do you belong to any interest groups? Are there any organizations that you belong to? What about your parents? Go ask them or send them a text message. Put a list of these interest groups on my desk the day after you watch the Sheps Chat. Anyone who puts it on my desk before Monday gets extra credit on their unit test. But don't tell anyone. I want to see who watches this and when. What do interest groups do? Well, they hire lobbyists to influence Congress people and the decisions of the government. They can file briefs with the Supreme Court, which challenges regulations and laws, and they can write down ideas that eventually will become laws, word for word. So they are basically writing the laws of our nation and then handing them over to lawmakers. Who is part of an interest group? Well, anybody can be part of an interest group, but it's typically for the middle and upper class. The interest groups themselves are often wealthy and throw around a lot of money. And then the lobbyists are many times ex-Congress people because they are the ones that are going to have ties and connections to people in Congress, which makes it easier for them to do their job. All right, this is an example of a lobbyist and how he works with his interest group to get a politician on their side. So you're a big bank and you want to influence a senator on a banking bill that is coming up. And the easiest way would be for you to just write a $100,000 check and say, we're giving you this $100,000 check. We'd really like it if you'd vote this way on the bill. However, that is illegal. That's like bribing somebody. So that's clearly illegal. And it also is prevented by law because you cannot make direct donations to the candidates in that amount. So instead, a person or a company hires a lobbying firm. This is when things start to get corrupt. That lobbying firm can legally organize this like fancy dinner and raise $100,000. So they invite a whole bunch of people to this fancy dinner, say that this famous politician is going to be there. It's like $100 a plate or more, and you're there supporting their reelection campaign. It kind of reminds me of the way that Harry describes his support for the Melgus Row sailing groups. And then at the end of the fundraiser, your lobbyist just happens to have a friendly chat about your feelings on banking policy with the senator's staff, telling him, you know, it'd be so great for Bank of America if you voted this way. At the end of the day, the senator still gets the $100,000 for his campaign that was raised at the meal, and he knows where that money came from. He also knows if he wants to continue having meals like this, then he is going to have to vote that way on the bill. That's going to be what keeps the money flowing. However, this does not break the law. So the same thing is achieved. The senator gets $100,000 for his reelection campaign, and the people get their way on the bill. So Bank of America gets their way on the bill, but no laws have been broken. It's kind of a shady business, but it's the way that America works. All right, there's been some different literature on the benefits of interest group. Tocqueville wrote Democracy in America, and he emphasizes how well people have gotten together in groups to solve civic problems. That's something that you guys have already read as one of your independent readings, so hopefully you have a pretty good understanding of how Tocqueville saw America as this revolution in people working together. James Madison wrote Federalist 10 on the benefits of multiple organizations in the political system. Robert Dale wrote Who Governs and said that groups were the way to protect American democracy. Now, at the beginning, there's nothing about interest groups clearly in the Constitution. But 2/3 of all Americans currently belong to a group, and there are over 100,000 associations in the United States today. That's a lot of people that belong to these groups. Why so many? Well, one, the government can't control them from you from joining them or creating them. It's your First Amendment right. I'm going to fix this because otherwise it'll drive me crazy later. Okie dokie. Membership. Why do people join? Well, the main reason that people join is they want to have their voice heard. They also might not feel like their issues are at the forefront, so they feel like sailing policies are super important, and nobody's really interested in making new regulations for sailing. I don't even know if there's such a thing, but whatever. So they might try to have their issues brought to the forefront. These are latent issues, public policy not addressed by a certain group already. So Harry finds out that there's not a sailing interest group. He might start one. Christian finds out that there's not a Young Republicans Club. He might start one. Abby finds out that there's not a youth women's soccer interest group. She might start one. There's the solidarity incentive. You have a feeling of belonging. You feel like other people are on your side. You can share interests, like the Audubon Society is a interest group, but a lot of them share information about different birds and stuff that they have spotted. There's material incentives. So I told you guys in class yesterday that my parents belong to ARP. The only reason my parents belong to ARP is to get that 15% off at Denny's, and then twice a week it's 25% off. ARP also offers discounts at more realistic places like hotels and on car rentals, stuff like that. And then the purpose incentive, you believe so strongly in that cause that you are willing to join that organization. So you feel very strongly in Second Amendment rights, you're going to join the NRA. What are some reasons why people do not join? One is that they don't have to. So you get this free rider problem. Now in Wisconsin, all teachers don't have to be part of the teachers union, so they don't have to belong to the NEA. I pay $55 a month for membership in the NEA. There's other teachers that don't pay anything. Does NEA still fight for the rights of all teachers? Yes, of course they do. It's not just the teachers that are part of the NEA or part of the teachers union. So those people are called free riders. They are reaping the benefits without paying for it. Sometimes the group is small and then they might be more likely to join, but if it's a larger group, like the National Organization of Women or the ACLU, they feel like the benefits, they enjoy them, but they don't need to support them because there are going to be enough people out there supporting them. There are different types of interest groups. We're going to go over each of those different categories of interest groups in the next few slides. First one is social movements. A lot of interest groups grow from social movements. The rights for minorities, protecting the accused, concern for spending and wealth gaps. So a lot of social movement groups are women's groups like NOW, the National Organization for Women, the Chicanos, the National Farm Workers Association, the African Americans have the NAACP. There's gender equality issues with the gay, bisexual, lesbian, transsexual, and questioning. The Occupy Wall Street, the Tea Party movement, those all started off as social movements. Another type of interest groups are economic interest groups. The first group that we're going to talk about is a business interest group. So these are large businesses like the Chamber of Commerce, the Bankers Association, the National Beer Wholesalers Association. And they're going to agree on a lot of things, like lowering taxes and having less regulation and being able to pollute probably a little bit more. But specifically what they want will vary across each of their interests. Agricultural interest groups make up less than 2% of the population, but they have a huge influence because they have a ton of money. So this is where you're going to see like the potato growers group that we talked about, the peanut growers. Some of the things that these people look for is they want to have less immigration regulation because they want to be able to pay people less, and they also want to conserve farmland. There's labor interest groups, the NEA, which is the National Educators Association, the Teamsters, and then they're going to push forward the labor movement that started in the 1800s. Those were things like fair wages, safe working environments, compensation for hours worked, and that is going to be where you get a lot of the guidelines for an 8-hour workday, working 40 hours and then getting overtime, making sure that your work complies with OSHA. And there's more people in public sector unions today than private. So employees like myself, like teachers, police officers, firemen, they are more in unions than people that work at private industries. So like Century or Bird's Eye, something like that. Then there are professional interest groups, the American Bar Association, the American Medical Association. So both of Abby's parents are doctors. They probably both belong to the American Medical Association. Those are for professional groups, so people that went to school for much longer than myself. Another type of interest group is environmental. They have been around for 100 plus years, but they got a big push around 1970. This is about the same time Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, which was a very popular book that led to things like Earth Day and the fact that we were worried about the environment. Environmental interest groups are designed to protect the government or to protect the environment from the government or ecological areas. Sometimes they actually even buy up land just to protect it. The environmental groups include the World Wildlife Federation, the Environmental Defense Fund, the Sierra Club, the Clean Water Network, also like the Audubon Society, we talked about their interest in birds. Those are all going to be environmental groups, and they are concerned about protecting the environment. Another type of interest group is public interest. It's really hard to determine what public interest is because, well, we're all part of the public and we all have different interests. But the ACLU, so we all want to protect our civil liberties. We have different definitions of what that is, but we all want to protect them. The League of Women Voters, Amnesty International. So these are based on mass interest, a bunch of different things that people are concerned about. Ralph Nader is the most successful leader of public interest groups, and he focuses on consumer interest, and he works almost like a watchdog. Like your car is falling apart. He's going to make sure that interest groups are around that say, no, Ford, you need to fix this car. MoveOn.org is another public interest group, and it started when President Clinton was about to get impeached from office, and they tried to convince people we need to move on to more important things, not worry about who President Clinton has been sleeping with. Ironically, now they would like to investigate Donald Trump to have him either censored or impeached from office. So sometimes interest groups don't have an interest as much as they have an agenda. The same thing could be said for conservative interest groups. This is just a liberal example. And then there's single issue interest groups. These are very powerful groups that focus on one issue that people feel extremely strongly about. And they're willing to spend lots of money. They're willing to go out and do footwork, go door to door, work on campaigns. And that's the NRA, so National Rifle Association, ARP, which is the old people group, the Brady campaign, which tries to limit gun access, PETA, Protecting Animals, MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and then the two abortion groups, Pro-Choice America and the Right to Life Committee. Somebody that often gets left out is the poor people, the poorer people. They cannot afford to be a part of the group. They don't have time because they're working multiple jobs. Also the disabled, youth, non-English speaking people, and undocumented minorities. So interest groups speak for a lot of the American public, but there are still some people that don't feel like they have a voice. What are some characteristics for a strong interest group? Large membership. ARP has over 40 million members. The government knows if ARP says something, they might want to listen because they have 40 million members, 40 million old people members. You know who likes to go vote because they don't have anything better to do on Tuesdays? Old people. So they are very influential. They need to have lots of money and resources. ARP has a $1 billion budget. They have plenty of money. Strong leadership that has effective strategies. They might want to have star power. So Charlton Heston was elected for the NRA. We might not all know who Charlton Heston is, but he's very popular among NRA members. He was like a movie star. I think he was in Westerns and stuff. They need to have cohesiveness. So vocal membership. Think of the Right to Life interest groups or the pro-choice interest groups. They are cohesive. They bond strongly together. And then the ability to get others to rally behind their cause. Today, a lot of times we do that through hashtags. So if you guys remember a while back, like a month or two ago, there was these Me Too hashtags on Facebook, and it was like, I've been sexually harassed you. And my liberal and conservative friends were all posting Me Too, and I kind of like, every single one of you has been sexually harassed, but okay. Their interest groups were able to get people to rally behind that cause. There are two types of strategies. There's direct techniques and indirect techniques. When we start off, direct techniques are to go up to politicians directly. So that would include lobbying, having private meetings, testifying before Congress, assisting in drafting or writing bills, inviting politicians to social functions. Please join us for this convention. It just happens to be in Honolulu, and it's an all-expense-paid trip. And then providing information, so in an expert role. So in the one video that we watched the other day about the baked potato salesman testifying before Congress about school lunches, they're considered experts. They also rate politicians. So if you are a member of the NRA, you know how to vote against two candidates based on the NRA's rating system. So one might be rated at a 94 and one might be rated at a 60.